Hello and welcome back to Open Studio. I thought it was funny on one of the last episodes I mentioned that we're on episode whatever 30 or 31, not realizing that we're all the way out to 40 something. So time flies when you're having a good time. But thanks for coming by again. This painting's really coming along. I'm pretty happy with it. All right, we finished the headlight, and there's still a lot of work. Not a lot, but there's still some work that needs to be done in this whole area with the bars and everything to kind of tie it together. But I'm not going to jump on that just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep basically doing the bulk of the work on the rest of the bike. Then at the very end of the painting, then I can adjust all those things at once, and it'll really help not only to kind of get those really tightest details, like there's like little tiny highlights on the where the front and the bezel of this headlight housing come together, things like that. When I do all that together, it'll tie the whole painting together. If I finish it all completely to the end, sometimes I have to make adjustments in the end, and it doesn't, there are parts that don't look continuous, but by doing all those, that whole stage at the end really works out well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start blocking in basically the brown areas of this, of the tank and everything else. There's some great lettering on the side of this. You could see the Harley Davidson, but then there's ghosted a second Harley that I don't know if it was, I'm assuming this was the original Harley Davidson, and then the other one was put on top at one point, but they're both worn away, which is really, really cool. So it's going to be fun to kind of do those. I'm going to do it exactly the way it is. There's a nice fat dent in the tank right here. So lots of fun. All right, let me get this going. So I remember I have, from way back, I mixed up plenty of that base rust color, which looks like this. Cut it out. I just had it. You would think. I know, I go through this all the time. There it is. So this is the base Harley rust color. Usually on a painting like this, when I have a color, I'll put a tag on it, which I should definitely do with this one. It's the only brown I'm using right now, which is why I didn't, but I should, because it makes it easier to find. So I'll just write the painting and then what it is. So this is the sky from painting of Plymouth that I had done, or am working on right now. Now this paint, whenever I have a paint like this, I think I've mentioned this before, I'm going to shake this up, because whenever I have paint mixed up like this, it never has reducer in it or anything else, like 40-50, sometimes 40-50, but never reducer. What I'd like to have is just the raw color, so that I can add the reducer and 40-50 if I need it to it without, and plus it keeps a lot better when it's not reduced either. It doesn't separate out and all that fun stuff. So shake that up. I already shook it up, which is why I lost it, because after I was done shaking it up, I put it in the wrong spot. So that's what happens. All right, let me grab my glove, because I'm going to need this. I think I'm going to be on the surface. There's a couple things going on here. So the tank has a lot of that brown in it, but also has a lot of that darker steel color, which I'm going to get to. And the top of this piece right here has that light blue cast that's like on the fender down here. So I got to deal with that separately as well. But it's okay, because I can just kind of start blocking things in and get things going. I'm going to use the Micron CS, or I'm sorry, Micron CS. That would be a neat brush. The Micron C for this. This paint, I want this a little bit thicker, because I want to be able to cover a little bit better and kind of, again, block in. I'm not overly looking for a ton of detail out of this. So the C handles that much better than the detail. They're both detail oriented, but the B is even more detail oriented than the C here. And this bottle is, the top of this bottle is all gummed up. This happened on Monday Night Live a couple weeks ago, or last week. No, Thursday Live on YouTube. I was doing exactly this. The top of the bottle was not, it's all clogged up. And when I went to really try to squeeze this hard, the paint came out right at the bottom. It just came through the cap and dripped all over the painting. It was terrible. But I think that's going to inspire a Tech Tuesday. Well, you guys want to see everything, so here we go. So this bottle is jammed up. I love these bottles. I'll try to put a link into where I get them. I just get them on Amazon. They're from Boston Plastics. They're great. They're solvent resistant. They're inexpensive. You buy them like 25 at a time. They're really great. But sometimes what happens, especially with the Createx, is it just kind of gets jammed up. So what you can do is you can remove the top of this, and there's all the jammed up paint on there. Just kind of wipe this off. And then I have those meat skewers everywhere. So for holding templates down and all kinds of stuff. You just use that to make sure there's no dried paint in the little openings here on the side. And there is a little bit. There we go. Make sure those are cleaned out. Notice I moved the painting. Yeah. All right, that's good. And then you can just give it a little squeeze, the bottle, and just make sure there's air coming out and there's nothing, blocking it. So that's all set. So I know that's good now. Now this guy here is usually where the problem is, and there's all kinds of jammed up paint in there. So what I do to clean these out real quick, because I have all of them. Like I don't throw them out. I'll just clean them out and recycle them because they're nice. They don't ever need to be thrown out really. So just get a dry paper towel and I just spin this to get as much of the paint out. You can get the paint off the outside if you want to. It doesn't really matter. And then when I pull this out, sometimes it pulls a whole block of paint out too that's jamming that up like that. And sometimes it leaves a little bit in there, but still, it's no problem. Now, the nice thing about the, look at all kinds of stuff going on down here. Sorry. There we go. Drop my meat skewer here. The Visionaire thing is awesome, but it has this little track at the bottom, and everything I put down here gets lost. It gets stuck in there. Anyway, so meat skewer in the end of it. And with this, the brown is really rubbery, so it makes it easy. It just all comes out. Sometimes if it's a color like white, it'll powder. It'll break off. It won't come out really easy. You got to work at it, but you get all that out, and that's what was blocking it. And then grab another corner of the paper towel here. These shop towels, you can get them at any hardware store, automotive place. They're just lint-free shop towels. It's worth the extra money to buy these. I do have paper towels here, regular old paper towels, but these things, there's no lint in them. So if I'm cleaning out the airbrush or I'm cleaning out like a bottle like this, there's very little lint that will come off these towels onto the parts. And that's important because if I get a piece of lint in this cap and then I squeeze this into my airbrush, especially at the micron, that's going to give me a hard time later on. So it's worth it if you're working with an airbrush. Invest in these paper towels. Again, I have both. So I use these for things like this, and then for cleaning glass on frames and stuff, I use, I do still use these, but, just general cleaning and general paper towel stuff, I just use a regular old paper towel. And there we go. So that's all done. I could flush that out and really clean it, but that's not what we're doing here. We just need it clean enough so that the paint comes out. All right. So that was like a mini Tech Tuesday on Open Studio. All right. But again, on Open Studio, you get it all. You get exactly what's going on. So now I'm just going to put a drop. Well, I'll put 2 drops because I may use this for a while. But you see how thick that is? That's right out of the bottle. And now, because I was errant in doing this before, I closed the cap on this one. I have a bad habit of leaving the caps basically open, untwisted, especially with the black and white because I use them so frequently. But these bottles here, since I don't use these really frequently, I should really close them like that and then wipe them off. Now when I go to use this again, it's not going to be dried up on the inside. All right. Now for this color here, for any Wicked colors, I could just reduce this and go for it, but I'm going to use the 40-50 mix. So I'm going to mix up more of this. It's 1 part 40-50 to 10 parts reducer, and it produces this neat spiked reducer. And I talk about this a lot. This is the 1 to 10 mix is the one I usually use for most applications, but I do have different ones. I have a 1 to 20 in case I really want to do some detail stuff. I have a thicker one like 1 to 2 and 1 to 5. It just depends on what I'm working on. If I want more coverage, I'd use or if I want it, I'm sorry, if I want it thicker. So if I want to not have it spiderweb as much, then I'd use the heavier one, like the 1 to 2, 1 part, 40-50 to 2 parts reducer. But this gives a nice, for this brush, this gives a nice blend of coverage and usability. Now, by itself, if I fill this whole cup with that mix and it was just 2 drops of paint like I did, this would be a really high detail type of color because it's way more thin material than there is paint. The good news is, well, even then it's kind of over reduced. But the idea is that you reduce it, but you also add in that binder that you're taking out by spreading it out. And I talk about it a lot with the house painting thing. You know, you have a gallon of paint, but you got to paint your whole house, which will take 30 gallons. So you mix it with 30 gallons of water. Yeah, you have now enough liquid to cover the house, but it's your paint job's going to look like trash. So it's the same thing with this stuff. If you over reduce it too much, it's gonna, it's not going to work the same way. I over reduce it because of the detail factor, and I'm not covering a large area. So that's why I do that. And I know I talk about that a lot, but that is one of the number one questions. Is what pressure do you run at, and then how is it reduced? You get a lot of that, and so it's worth kind of going over. All right, enough of that. Let's get going. So I have this on the wrong hand, which is fine because I'm thinking I'm going to use a paintbrush, but I'm not using the airbrush. So I'm going to switch the glove over this hand. I should just put the other glove on and then I don't have to worry about it, but that's okay. And I'll try to put a link in for these cotton gloves again too. They're just regular cotton gloves. They're fantastic. They just keep my grubby mitts off the painting. Let's get that going here. There we go. Had some water in there to start. So again, like the rest of the bike here, I'm just kind of going in and starting the texture down. And again, this is like the block-in color for the whole thing, but it doesn't mean that I have to just spray it in. Like where I'm spraying right now, this is going to be really, really dark. And I could just spray that with black and it would look okay. But because it's going to have this base of that same brown color, it's really going to have a three-dimensional look to it, because you're going to be seeing through that black to the brown or whatever other colors I put on this. And by making those colors complex, that really is making it like it is in real life. Like it isn't just one color in real life. And that's the trap. You see the color and you say, okay, I'm going to mix that color up and I'm going to spray it and that's going to be it. But that's really not what's going on. And again, for me, it's all about telling the story, I want to tell the story as accurately as I possibly can. And that involves kind of making things the way they really are. Now this color will develop, as you've seen before. I'll get you in closer. This color develops really dark. That is as close as we can get, huh? All right. Let me move the camera one more time here for you. Get you really close. So this color will develop pretty dark, which I really, really like. But if I, when I showed it to you or when I showed you in the cup, it looks like a milk chocolate, like a hot chocolate. But it actually develops pretty dark on the surface. And that's partially because you're seeing through it and you're seeing the HD stencil. The gray of the HD stencil is also helping darken it a little bit. But you can do I guess my point is you can do a lot with this. It's not like a really light layer that then you have to put, 100 other layers on top. This, you can get a lot of variation in it too, which is great. So there is the cables here, which I don't necessarily have to avoid, but this brush puts paint on with such a controlled layer that I can almost avoid those cables. I wouldn't have to, as long as I can see them when I go to put them in, because they're basically black. You can kind of see it right there. But yeah, with this brush I can avoid them. So it's almost like there's a mask on them, which is nice. Again, it's not super critical because I can see them, I know where they are. And then I could also use a photocopy to lay them in after. So that's a possibility too. The big thing is if I'm going to avoid them like I'm doing, I want to make sure there's some overspray on them. I don't want to really, like, I wouldn't want to mask that off because it would look masked off. It would look like a jigsaw puzzle. And that's the biggest catch with all the masking with airbrushing. If you only have adhesive masks where you have a tight edge everywhere, it looks very, very jigsaw puzzle like. You know, it's tough to balance that off and kind of blend things together. I find it more work than it's worth because if you use the adhesive mask, yeah, you have a nice clean edge there, but then you have to spend all your time like making it look more natural. And that goes true with the paintbrush too. You know, the paintbrush has a real definitive edge to it, even with a wash. And what I find is the big reason I blend the tools together is because you get the best of both worlds. You get that super tight edge of the paintbrush, but then you can blend it out with the airbrush. Or if you get it as close as you can and then add a little bit of sharpness with the paintbrush, you win. So. And again, I know I've said all this before, but it bears repeating because it's an important part of kind of the way that I get things done. I would say we're about halfway on this painting, so it would not surprise me if this is a 40-hour painting, which is totally fine. There's no need to rush something like this. But it's nice to know, you know, especially in the process with a painting like this where I'm showing it as I'm working on it. You know, sometimes I'll do that with paintings on any of the social medias. Like I'll just show like an in-process picture. Oftentimes I'll get messages for people who are interested in that painting. They want it, you know, they're interested in collecting it before it's even finished to see where it's going, and they know what it's going to be and they really want it. So knowing where the painting is as far as how involved it's going to be really helps me then determine what the amount is that it's going to sell for, and that's important. Because no matter how far along I get in this whole thing, it really, for me, it boils down to the technical difficulty that's involved in a painting, and then the number of hours that are involved in getting it done. That's really what determines the bulk of the cost of a painting. And again, every artist would love to get to the point where their art sells for, you know, millions, and then all of that is just it is just whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, all the hours are automatically being covered, all the effort is being covered, all the technical, not skill, but, you know, the amount of technical challenge in it is being covered. You know, that's a wonderful point to be as an artist, and I look forward to being there someday. All right, so I've got all the kind of rust texture kind of blocked in here. So now I'm going to start to kind of throw in this overall tone. The middle of this has that same yellowish primer that's going on here, just a hint of it. So I'm not going to go too crazy with the brown in the middle of it. I just want to kind of get a little bit of that for it to stand on. The other thing I'm not sure about yet, and I got to do a little bit of research. So I've got the sidecar, and what I thought happened is the sidecar dips down on the side where the door is, which is why you don't see it back here. But there's an indication in the photograph that the sidecar is continuing on back here. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research on the 20s era J Harleys to see what I can find about that sidecar. I also have other photos of this bike too, from that show. So I can use that as well, but you may see by the end of the painting me kind of putting the sidecar in back here in the image. Plus, and then of course, if anyone knows, like what I should really do is lean on my friends at Retro Cycle in New Jersey. They have made a living out of restoring bikes just like this one, so they would know. So I should hit them up too. And then I'll find other things like where this little bracket is to hold the cable. Right to the left of that's background, and I missed that. So I'm going to have to, spray that gray at some point as well. again, I run into a lot of stuff like that. It just happens, you know. It's just like things, little teeny weeny things that I miss, and I think we did some of that on the wheel. There was some parts in there that I missed, background bits. It's no big deal, and an area that small, it's easy to match the color behind it, so it's not even going to be a thing. All right, so this is mostly black. There's not a lot of brown on that, but the top of this has some brown in it too. And that, yeah, like this frame back here, I don't know if that's part of this bike. It might be. This might be the frame to hold on the rest of the sidecar. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some work on that. So for the meantime, no, I'm not going to do anything. I was going to spray that with some brown, but if that's going to go away, if that's part of like a bike in the background, I'm going to actually end up taking that out. So, but I have a feeling that's the frame, part of the frame for the sidecar. So I'm just going to leave it alone for now until I can do a little bit of research on that. I said you guys are going to be part of absolutely everything on this. I'm going to do that on the side, but I will come back with the answer for that and share it with you guys when I do it. It just involves, you know, getting online and looking up bikes, and there's a big fat splash. Looking up bikes and, you know, kind of checking it out and seeing what you can find. And you know, it's half the fun of doing a painting like this. You can come up with all this great research, and then you learn about the bikes or the cars or the place or the whatever you're painting. And it's one of my favorite parts about the whole process. So I don't know if you saw that. It's spiderwebbed pretty hard over here. I know that's a little bit out of focus because of the depth of field, but what happens is with the brown, it'll just kind of get clogged up in the brush more than other colors. So I got to be wary of that as I'm working. I've got the blue already on the tank, which is lovely. So I can start throwing in some of this on the tank. I'm going to do the tank and basically this area first, and then I'll move down to the motor down here. I could start putting this in all over the motor, but again, I'm going to wait on that. It's easier for me to kind of deal with one little bit at a time. And if it's different enough, like obviously the front end of this bike is totally a different part than the tank and everything. So if there's slight variation there, it's not going to make a huge difference. In fact, it'll probably enhance the whole painting, which is nice. But if I do the whole thing, you know, that, you know, it'll also work too. It just depends, I guess, on the mood that I'm in. You know, if I want to just run this color out everywhere and just kind of mess with it, it like I said, there's no super important reason to do it either way. It's really whatever I'm feeling at the time. The letters on this are definitely paint, and they're white. Well, they were white. Now they're got like this really deep yellow. It's so cool though to have the double logos on there. That's going to be a lot of fun. What's going on here? Oh, I know what's going on. The air is getting under the magnet. It's popping it out, so I'll put some magnets down the bottom here to keep it from flopping around. The tank has a lot of that dark brown in it, that really almost black brown. All right, Blumber. So I don't have to do too much of this, but again, it's the same thing as up here in this dark area here. I just want to kind of get that rusty color underneath everything so that as I move along, I'll have that darker color will have something to stand on. And again, I'm dealing with the HD stencil, so I can see the pattern in the HD stencil. I definitely do not want any of that showing at the end. And I'm going to do one more quick thing before we get too much farther. So the more I see this painting, the more that, again, these are minor adjustments that usually get done at the end, but I keep thinking about this every time I look at it, so I'm going to hit this now. The other side of the springs, that's pretty much how they are in the photograph. This left-hand side is really sharp, and then it fades around just the way the lighting is. But in my painting, every time I look at it, it bugs me. It just feels like these springs are cut and pasted in there. So what I'm going to do to kind of enhance this, and I needed the brown for this, which is why I'm going to do it now since I have it in the brush. But I'm going to run back and forth against this side of the springs, the left-hand side. And I know what that's doing. It's building up on the black. I'm going to take care of that after when I get to the black. But I want to just kind of add a little bit of value to that left-hand side, just to kind of help that curl over a little bit as it goes away on this side. Now again, I'm going to have to adjust the black background because this has some covering ability because there's white in it. But I just wanted to grab that now since I was thinking of it. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of this yellow ochre in here too. So where the yellow is up in the box up here, it kind of pops in and out. So I think what I'll do is I'll burn down the rest of this brown now, and then on the next episode we'll start getting the secondary colors in those yellows and blues and things like that. It's a good way to go. There's even some olive green in here too, and all that's just the oxidation of the metal. It's the beautiful part about it. It's not that the bike was green or the bike was brown or whatever. It's just all these different colors from all that, the what's going on with the metal. The life expectancy of this paint in the cup is also pretty short. It's probably about an hour to 45 minutes, meaning in the cup it'll start setting up. So even though I could do a lot with this color, it gets to a point where it'll start not functioning well. I can feel it. I'll have to pull the trigger back farther to get any paint to come out, and that's a good indication to swap it out with fresh color. It's why I don't fill the whole color cup up, and if I do, I have this cap plug here. This has a cap that comes with it, but it has a hole in it, a big hole. This cap plug is nice because it just has a little breather hole in it, so if I'm going to use a lot of paint, I'll drop the cover on it just to kind of keep the air from really getting at it. I mean, there's a lot of air in there anyway. It's still going to do it, but it's not open, so that helps a lot too. All right. And again, I'm going to say it again and again and again, as I'm just kind of dropping in this brown. I cannot thank you all enough. It's been so much fun to be able to do this kind of experiment, this YouTube experiment of this, massive painting which has like whatever it's going to have, 80 episodes or whatever ridiculous amount it is at the end. And I'm so happy that people are enjoying it and checking in every week on it. And, I was honestly really worried. I was worried that people are going to be like, same painting for whatever, 80 episodes. It's like, bleh. But I'm glad people are enjoying it, and kind of getting out of it what I get out of every painting. Every painting, even if it takes a really long time, I just kind of get a lot out of it. It's like each one is like this painting, like this is each one is it's really its own journey, and I almost feel sad when they're done because I've spent so much time on them. So I'm happy that people are really enjoying it, and I love the comments. If you see something even in an episode that you want more clarification on it, let me know, because I can always address it in the next episode, even if I've moved on from that. So questions are great. Comments are great. If you have a way of doing something that's different the way that I'm doing it, let us all know. That's what we're here for. It's part of the Open Studio thing. All right. That's good. All right. So with that, I think that's what we're going to call this. I'm going to swing you guys around a little bit. And then when we get back on the next episode, next week, we'll put in some of those secondary colors and get it really dialed in. So what's nice about this is the tank. Stop it. There we go. The tank is really like such a broad area. That's going to go real fast, which is nice. We'll have that done, fairly quickly. Same thing with the other details here. All right. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Do that. You will also notice that as of a couple episodes ago, we are now monetized here, which is wonderful. So for those people who have thrown the super chats on, the videos as we're getting started, I truly appreciate that. And what we'll do is we'll do a short thank you at the beginning of every episode of people who have thrown those super chats or thank yous on, not super chats, but thank yous on the post. It's right there at the bottom, that little heart with the thanks. It just helps to keep the channel going and allows me to invest the time that I want to in it. All right, so for Steve Leahy in Open Studio, love you guys, and I will catch you next time.